Bible reading, which is a very familiar one. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You've answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this, and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levi, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he travelled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have.' Which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Jesus actually takes a stereotypical joke of the time. The power brokers of the day were priests and Levites, and the Samaritan is supposed to be the Jew, who is the third person in the joke. He twists the joke completely, and the Samaritan, if you know your area, was from the middle area. There was a northern kingdom, a southern kingdom, and Samaria in the middle. The Jews and the Samaritans were, well, a good Samaritan is an oxymoron. For the average person at that time, the only good Samaritan was at least far away, if not a dead Samaritan. So Jesus' joke is a joke which we all need to live by, and to remember that our neighbour is the person in need, wherever they may have come from, wherever they may be going. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank and praise you that you have given us your commandments to live by, and that they are commandments of love for you and love for each other. And we pray that in all our deliberations and thoughts today, we may constantly keep your glory before our eyes, your love for one another, and your love for our community. And we pray that all the decisions that are taken and the discussions that are held will be held in that spirit. We ask it in your name, Lord. Amen. For those who are able, we join together in the family prayer, saying, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen."
Thank you, Reverend Cox. Please sit down, colleagues. First thing on the agenda is cutting-edge technology. Apologies for absence. We have an apology from the Mayor tonight. She's at the circus celebrating 25 years of the act. There are so many opportunities with this, but we're not going to go there. So there's the Mayor. I don't think there's any other further apologies, is there? Thank you. Declarations of interest, please. Councillor Wright.
On item 8 on the agenda for the tramway extension, I declare a personal interest as I'm chair of Blackpool Transport.
Thank you. Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I would like to also declare that I'm a personal interest as a director of Blackpool Transport.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
I'm the same director of Blackpool Transport.
Councillor Benson. Thank you. I'd like to just a couple of personal interests on the taxi. I have a private hire licence and also have a brother-in-law that works at Blackpool Transport. So I think Yeah, Councillor Coleman as well, yeah. Thank you. Moving on, minutes of the meeting, of the last meeting. Can we agree the minutes of the last meeting, colleagues? Thank you. Thank you. Announcements. I have 4 announcements today, 2 very sad announcements. And obviously I've only a few moments now and I can't do justice to the 2 very special people that have passed away. 2 people for whom Blackpool meant a lot, and they meant a lot to Blackpool. First, of course, is Jean Preston, the wife of David, Councillor Owen. Jean was Mayoress of Blackpool from 1995 to 96, Deputy Mayoress, of course, 2013 to 14. Among the many things she did, and these are only a few, she was a guide leader, a producer, choreographer, a dance teacher, Justice of the Peace, and she helped to save the Grand Theatre. She belonged to musical societies. And of course, David and Jean were the first couple to marry in this council chamber during Councillor Owen's year as Mayor of Blackpool. By all accounts, Jean was a remarkable lady, and I know she touched many lives of so many people. You only have to hear and read comments of former students to know how she was loved, and that those that knew her still think of her today with fondness. I'm sure the whole council and officers send their deepest sympathy to David at his loss of such a wonderful lady. And again, I cannot do her justice, but we're with you, David. We're with you. It's also my sad duty to announce the passing of Derek Lockwood, OBE. Derek was first elected to the town council in 1955 and served for 6 years. Then he moved on to Lancashire County Council. He returned to Blackpool Council from 1987 to 1995, beating me along the way in an election in 1991. I certainly remember him as a gentleman, always treated me with respect, and again, good memories. In 1990, he was awarded the OBE for services to politics. He lived in Blackpool all his life. He was born in Blackpool and he was very well known throughout the town. And again, I'm sure that the council all send our sympathy to his wife Pam and his family. And if you don't mind, colleagues, I think it would be fitting to have a minute's silence in memory of both special people. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you. Another announcement I have now. I've been asked by the Mayor to read the following regarding the Armed Forces Week that has just been so successful this last week. So the Mayor says, I was very proud of my hometown as I attended the excellent events during Blackpool Armed Forces Week, and I wasn't the only one. Many people told me how much they appreciated and enjoyed them, including the large number of veterans from all over the country who said that they came to Blackpool for the week, as Blackpool was by far the best. It would be impossible to name every single person who contributed to the 2016 Armed Forces Week. And if I did, I would be sure to miss someone out. But there are a few people and organisations that I saw making outstanding contributions and who, I know, have worked hard during the past 12 months to ensure a successful week that was enjoyed by thousands. Visit Blackpool, the Filed Ex-Servicemen's Liaison Committee, serving personnel of the Duke of Lancaster Regiment, Blackpool Sixth Form College students, and the Armed Forces Champion, Councillor Chris Ryan. To them and to all the businesses, council staff, local groups, organisations and residents who have contributed so much, I would like to say a very big thank you for your hard work. It meant so much to all the veterans and serving personnel who attended. And that was from the Mayor. I'd just like to further comment, I remember back in 1994 when Blackpool held the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of D-Day. And there were 3 people. There was Ray Wiseman, Jim Oldsworth, and a certain person by the name of Ian Coleman that instigated the celebrations. And from such little acorns, this wonderful week has now grown, and I think it's something that we can all be proud of. Because I think Blackpool has probably the busiest and best commemoration, and we look after the armed services probably as good as anybody outside London, if not even better than London. My final announcement is to compliment the new world record holders in the council chamber. Councillor Kane, Councillor Smith, Councillor Lynn Williams, Councillor Debbie Coleman, and me. It was fantastic. On Sunday, I'm sure you're all aware, the Sandcastle broke the world record for the number of people down a water slide in 1 hour. The organisation was first class. It was great to see so many people there. What we do need to do is say compliments to John Childs, his fantastic crew, to Radio Wave, Jed and Haley, who did so great in advertising and organising the event. And it was just a fantastic night. It was great to be involved for all of us. And I think we also need to remember now that the Sandcastle has just celebrated its 30th anniversary. And of course, there's been many ups and downs, excuse the pun, at the Sandcastle, but it's very much on the up now, and I think it's one of the jewels in Blackpool's crown. So, thank you all. That's the end of my announcements. Thank you. Moving on to Honorary Alderman. At our last meeting, we gave 5 people the Honorary Alderman. 1 person wasn't there, who is here tonight, Brian Doherty. Oh, what have I missed that? Oh, we've done the minutes of the last meeting. It was agreed, wasn't it? Anyway, minutes of last meeting. Oh, we agreed on the minutes of last meeting. I say, thank you for looking after me, Mark. We had. Everything is under control. Anyway, back to you, Brian. Back to you, Brian. Councillor Campbell, I believe you're to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
I am indeed, Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much. It gives me great privilege to be able to stand up and do a little speech of support for former Councillor Doherty. Sorry, I was going to say Councillor there. You'll be glad to know I'm going to keep it short and sweet because us Scots don't like to, hear the sound of our own voices. I met Brian, 6 years ago now, and it's been an experience, shall we say. It's been a very sweary experience sometimes when we've sat in rooms together, because he's much better than I am. Can I just say, Brian, that retirement is obviously very good for you. You're looking fantastic. Yes, it's been very interesting knowing Brian. I now know a lot about karate and various other things. Fortunately, he never taught me how to go to the bookies, so that was great. I've not lost any money there. But what was always clear about Brian was his pride and love of the people of Park Ward, Grange Park in particular. Always very proud to live there, always very proud to represent. And I felt as though I was filling a very big pair of shoes when I took over from the former Councillor Kersh after his death at the election in 2011. I'd like to think that I've done that quite well. I'm not sure if Brian will agree, but there we go. I've not had any emails of complaint so far since he retired, so that's a good thing. And can I just congratulate you on this, Brian? We are all very, very pleased that you've had this award, and it's very well deserved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Clapham, to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group, please.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy. Nice to see you, Brian, once again, and your good wife. Is it Dot? I've remembered that from all them years ago. It's a long time since I actually worked with, well, since I first worked with Brian, mainly on the planning committee. It was excellent going round on the inspection bus. There's someone over there who's chuckling away. The leader of the council, he knows. It was wonderful. We had a great atmosphere. There was no politics, didn't matter which party you were in. Everything was sorted out. The whole world was sorted out on that bus, till it got stuck a few times and went up the wrong route. But apart from that, it was great. Brian never, ever spoke politics to me. Never came into it, did it, Brian? No. He mentioned gardening. We always compared how things were going in the garden, what we were growing, why we were growing it, what failures there were. I think it was Celtic Football Club was big on the horizon, but I'm not interested in football. So it was Councillor Mitchell that he spoke entirely in terms of Celtic, and his moods came and went with how Celtic were doing. I can't remember you making a speech in full council. You were the quiet man of the Labour Party. But as a ward councillor, you must have been great, because you had support every time there was an election. You had an eardo, I think, when my wife stood in as a paper candidate. But that was just the way it was going that year. But you did a great job for Park Ward and on the martial arts side for all the young people. Very well thought of, and it is my pleasure to see both of you looking so well, and for you to get this alderman position. Very well deserved, and have a nice, long, healthy life together. I hope you can survive, but we as a council and the Conservative group are very, very pleased to support it. Thank you, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Clapham. We've already had a vote on this, Brian, so we don't need a second vote. And it's been decided that you're going to receive this honour. So if you'd like to come down to the dais, it'll be my pleasure to hand it over to you. Walk this way, sir. Brian, congratulations on all your service. You've been a real good servant to Blackpool. Congratulations. If you'd like to say a few words, please keep it under half an hour. There you go.
I won't keep you long. I'm going shopping at Iceland in a minute. Had to get that one in. Now, most of you know I don't speak very well at council meetings and public. But I missed the chance the last time when I retired, and I shouldn't have done. I'll speak up. I missed the chance last time, and I regret it. So I think this idea of giving long-serving councillors an award is quite a good idea. It shows a bit of recognition for what they've done. So I'd like to thank Simon and the whole council for this opportunity to give people some award. Out there, the general public, they don't know what the council is. Everyone gets called names. All the councils suffer for it. And it's hard getting through to them, but all the councillors have got their heart and soul into doing what they're doing. They believe in what they're doing, and they all enter for the right reasons. This side might be wrong reasons, but you know, that's but we'll overlook that for a minute. But anyway, I'd just like to thank you once again for this. I missed it last time, and I didn't think about back in this chamber so quickly. I might make a habit of it, I don't know yet. But thank you once again for this.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, colleagues. We now move on, please, to public representation. I have a couple of gentlemen here to talk to us this evening, Mr. Lutus and Mr. Buckley. Just to advise you, gents, you've got 5 minutes in total. You can share that however you wish. We will give you a warning when 4 minutes are up. Okay, gentlemen? Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for allowing us here today. The purpose is we want to express concern about congestion. That's existing congestion and future congestion when the tramway is extended. Some of you have had some emails from me already. You'll know my views on this subject. 6 years ago, though, 6 years ago we expressed concern about congestion arising from the promenade changes, and we said the promenade then was going to be too narrow, and we said the loss of the central island would make it worse for pedestrians. We suffered months of inconvenience, but we were reassured it would be worth it. Well, the verdict when it was finished was it looked good, but it didn't deliver what was promised. And as evidence of that, I'll remind you of the BTS slogan from last year. Beat the jam, take a tram. Okay, nowhere is it more narrow than at the Metropole Hotel. Now, we were told it was done that way on the advice of the rail regulator. But it turns out I've learnt since that that's perhaps not quite entirely the truth. And the council made plans, submitted it to the rail regulator, and it was approved. Our view is you should have left it as it was, like it is in Lord Street, Fleetwood. We've looked at the plans, the future plans, and we've seen the segregation of traffic going eastwards from Talbot Square, so there's no traffic going east from Talbot Square. That concerns us. When you get congestion, you also get emissions. That's something we may have to deal with in the future. Going east, up Clifton Street and along Abingdon Street, yeah, taxi journeys are being made longer. We obviously don't like that. But north and south along the promenade is our main concern because it's already very, very busy and trams are going to be crossing there and that's going to add to the congestion. I'd remind you that we get 16 million visitors a year and 15 million of them come by road. And we certainly don't want to spoil the holiday experience for our visitors. We also have communities in the north and south of Fylde who commute through Blackpool every day. And if they can't get along the promenade, then they'll be on Whitegate Drive, Devonshire Road. So we can expect problems there. The promenade is an arterial route. The funding, well, we know that Transport for Lancashire have contributed most of the money. But we're in a time of austerity. We don't actually know ourselves. I'd be interested to know if Transport for Lancashire are affected by Brexit. But certainly there's consequences for jobs and services and years of debt when this goes through. We understand there's been limited market research. I don't know if you know this, but the BTS bus stop has been removed from North Station. And the reason I was given for that was that they weren't winning enough business there. It wasn't worth the while going down. The new tram depot will be further away than the BTS bus stop. Also, I'd like to mention there's very, very little benefit for local people who live away from the promenade. What we think would help would be a bus station, and I think if you'd applied for funding for a bus station, you'd have had a lot more support. The other issues are there are too many zebra crossings where there should be pelican crossings, and I would ask you to bear in mind for future the advice from the Department for Transport, which says that where there's large numbers of people, it should be pelican crossings and not zebra crossings. I'd like you to consider restoring North Promenade by the Metropole back to how it was. Finally, thank you for listening. I don't know if I've covered everything, but if I haven't, we've got a few seconds remaining for my colleague, Steve Buckley.
Sam again, thanks for having us here and letting us speak. Really, I'm singing from the same hymn sheet as Mr. Lutus. There is severe congestion in the town centre already. Making a tramway up Talbot Road and not allowing traffic to drive up there, I can't actually understand why you're doing that, because you can actually drive westbound but not eastbound. It'll just cause severe congestion around Clifton Street, Abingdon Street, Springfield Road, and it'll just be gridlocked everywhere. People coming to the town just pop in. I mean, my wife pops into town to do some bit of shopping here and there, and that's just going to cease. It's just going to kill all that trade coming into the town centre. I don't know how the traders feel on Talbot Road, if there's been any objections from them or not. I'm not so sure. But I mean, we are really set against this project happening up Talbot Road. It just doesn't seem right to do it at this moment in time when we've got problems on the promenade regarding traffic and severe congestion. Thanks for listening, and hopefully we've covered everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Butley. Thank you, Mr Lutus. We appreciate your comments. Councillor Campbell is going to respond on behalf of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you, Mr Lutus and Mr Buckley, for taking the time to share your views with the council. I know that you've met with my officers, and I had kind of thought that you'd went away, they'd gone some way to allaying some of your concerns about traffic disruption and congestion. We will look again at junctions and crossings on the promenade, and we have committed to no more than one junction with Talbot Road being affected at any one time during construction. Councillors are actually taking a very active role in looking at the detail and making sure that we get it right. And that's why we delayed the decision at executive, because we wanted to clarify a few points about the scheme, which we duly did. We are looking at the detail, as I said, and we are questioning things with the intention of both minimising the disruption during the work and also making sure that this works as well as possible once it's complete. Every town in the country has a tramway or an underground system which either has or aspires to link to its major railway station. For example, Manchester, Sheffield and Nottingham. And there are clear advantages to users. The majority of the money for this tramway extension, you're right, has been awarded to us by the Department of Transport as a result of the success of the original tramway project, and we could not use this money for any other purpose. The bulk of responses that we've had so far to the consultation that we have done has been hugely in favour of this project, and I believe that it will bring significant benefits to Blackpool in the same way as the enormously successful original tramway system has. We shall, however, continue to talk to taxi drivers as much as possible to ensure that we get this right. The whole scheme is in the early stages, and I believe we've actually got an excellent relationship with taxi drivers. And whilst that I respect that that we might actually disagree about this scheme, I hope that through regular dialogue we can address your main concerns. So thank you again, once again, for your attendance tonight. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Thank you, gentlemen. You're welcome to stay if you wish, or please leave if you wish. Okay, thank you. Thank you, colleagues. We move on now to executive reports to Council, please. And the first executive report is presented by the Leader of the Council, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I was told earlier on that you were very nervous about chairing tonight's full council meeting. I did try extremely hard to help your nerves. Unfortunately, I couldn't get hold of Councillor Williams early enough to let him know the plan. The original plan was that when you walked in here at 6 o'clock, none of us were going to be here. We were all going to be hiding outside. But unfortunately, that cross-party working didn't quite happen in time. But you know, just look forward to that next time you're in the chair. Just want to make a few observations in addition to my written report, Mr. Deputy Mayor. First of all, I wanted to mention Councillor Collett. As members know, because I think I've spoken to all of you, Eddie's been very ill. He had been toying with the idea of being here tonight. I'm glad that common sense prevailed and that he's not here. But as you know, it's very hard to keep a good man down, and Eddie is one of the best. He is... a number of us have been to see him in the past week or so. He's still very much Eddie, and he's still fighting very hard. He sent a message to the Labour group tonight to say that he hopes to see us after the recess. So I just wanted to wish him well. And also, Councillor Clapham was mentioning the planning bus, and a number of us were on the planning committee at the same time. Eddie, of course, as most members will know, is referred to in various terms, but most frequently as Knock It Down Collett. And Eddie only went on the planning bus twice thus far has only been on the planning bus twice in his whole council career, and was telling me that on both occasions he went on it, it crashed. So I don't know, I don't know what that tells us about his approach to town planning. I wanted to echo also, Deputy Mayor, your comments and the words from the Mayor about Armed Forces Week. I think it was hugely successful, from the flag-raising ceremony on the Monday morning and the ceremony at the Cenotaph on the Sunday, and all points in between. Particularly like to thank Chris Pope at Visit Blackpool, Fildex Service Liaison Committee, our own Chris Ryan, yourself, the Deputy Mayoress, the Mayor and her colleagues. Thank the returning officer and his staff for all the work done on the referendum. 2:45 in the morning is the earliest I've ever been out of account, so well done. And finally, just to reflect upon the terrorist attack at Ataturk Airport, only a few days after we stood outside on the town hall steps to think about Dennis and Elaine Thwaites, who'd been killed in Tunisia just 1 year before. As a tourist town, we understand better than anybody else the impact of events like this on the tourist trade. And this is a clear attempt by terrorists to damage the tourist trade in Turkey, which is hugely important to them. And I'm sure everybody in this chamber would want to send their sympathies to the people who have been most immediately affected by this, but also to the tourist and hospitality trade in the country who will suffer as a consequence of this attack. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. So, colleagues, we'll go through Councillor Blackburn's report page by page. If you have a question, please indicate, and we'll take questions. And then at the end of the report, we'll take any further questions, as per usual. So, do we have any questions on page 11, please? Councillor Mrs. How would you like me to address you this evening? Councillor Mrs. Keller.
I know how to address you, Deputy.
And you've done it many a time.
And it's very nice to see you sitting there. You're doing a splendid job so far. No, I'm sure he'll continue in the same vein. He's very efficient and got a very nice way with it as well. Right, can I just remark about the government cuts here that the leader touches on? He's comparing, or I think he is, Blackpool with the county of Surrey, saying that they got the biggest beneficiary of this funding. They received 24.1 million. I agree with him that the way this has been distributed isn't fair and seems very unfair to the people of Blackpool. But we can't really compare light with light, because we know that Surrey is a county, and it's not all leafy lanes. They do have some urban areas that also have some problems, maybe not the problems on the same scale as we have, but on the M25 corridor, of course, there's places like Croydon, Mitcham and Sutton, just to name three. But I was just curious to know how Lancashire as a whole fared in this money. Because certainly people tend to think that Surrey is all leafy lanes. It's not. I'm not defending them. I defend Blackpool and say that we haven't had sufficient money, but I just wondered where the comparison came from. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a general question. First of all, isn't it nice to have a loud voice for a change? This is something different. I had a general question, Mr. Deputy Mayor, on the subject of business rates. We currently have a shortfall in what we collect ourselves and what the government tops up. And obviously, as we move in the current plan to 2020, where we'll be having complete retention of the business rates, I just wondered what the target will be by the leader of what that figure should be as we reach 2020 in terms of our business rate collection, in terms of the actual amount, not the percentage but the amount. So roughly at the moment, from memory, is it around 62 million? We're 40 million short. So as we get to 2020, what figures should we be looking at? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Any further questions on page 11? Page 12, please. Councillor Mrs. Keller.
Don't get me laughing. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Some months ago, I did ask for the figures for the council tax collection rates that were down, as opposed to percentages. I asked for the amount. And at that time, we were down 1.5% from last year, and it was £680,000. And I notice here on this report that for the year, we're now down 1.7%. And I wondered if the leader of the council could perhaps give me that figure in cash terms as opposed to percentages. I have brought this up at numerous meetings, and I don't think it's correct to say it's 1% of this or 2% of that. It all depends on the figure that you're looking at. So I would be grateful if Councillor Blackburn could let me know how much it is, 1.7% down on the previous year, as when it was 1.5% when I asked the same question some months ago. It was 680,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clapham, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy. It's on the Combined Authority. At the Health and Wellbeing Board, Anthony Lockley went through this proposal. He's the strategic head of place. I was left with the impression that it is not a done deal, and if it went ahead, there are significant risks in where the devolved money would be allocated. One possibility, if the CA went ahead, was that Blackpool may be trialled for a new housing benefit system. If this is true, it doesn't appear that we are being designated as a major part of the Northern Powerhouse, just a small player. I'd just like to hear what the leader of the council has got to say on the thoughts that I've been left with after hearing a very clear description about the Combined Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hobson, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Other than working to create the fully fledged Combined Authority, do you feel that the Shadow Authority can quickly start looking at major infrastructure and economic development across the county? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Galley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Following again on the Combined Authority, I know the leader has always been very keen about getting control of housing benefit. Will this be coming through in this deal? Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Taylor, please.
Mr Deputy Mayor, beg your pardon. I just wanted to listen to Councillor Clapham. I don't know whether I'm getting the right impression, but he seemed to be implying that the reform of housing benefit would be no big deal compared with other things that might happen. If that is what he feels, I totally disagree with him. I think that is really the centre of this whole enterprise, because I think control of the housing benefit, and I know negotiations are taking place about that, I think that's going to have a very, very major impact in this town and the way that we deal with many of the problems that we have. Whether we'll get it or not, I don't know, but I certainly very much hope that that is the case, and I think that it will be one of the most important steps that we could take, and certainly in my time on this council now, just taking a little indulgence to say that it's 50 years today since I first attended my first business meeting of the council, so I have seen a few experiences. Thank you. I was fishing for that. Well, thank you all very much. Well done. But I do think, as I say, that this is the most important matter. And if we get it, and make creating the Combined Authority certainly very much worthwhile.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Moving on, please. Page 13. Any questions? No questions. Page 13. Page 14, please, colleagues. Councillor. Mrs. Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I just want to comment on the transforming services, and in particular the PDSA. I think this move is really very, very good. for everybody concerned, because many years ago, if people were on benefits, they could just go to the PDSA and just show their benefit book or their pension book, and they would get immediate attention. But now that quite a lot of people in receipt of benefits have their money paid into their building society or into their bank, and these delays could cause animals and the owners an awful lot of distress, because sometimes with these things, every day counts. So I would just like to say that I was absolutely delighted when I read this, because I am an animal lover and I know what a splendid job the PDSA do for sick animals on the Fylde Coast. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Thank you. Councillor Lynn Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I've noted the joint working with Blackpool Victoria Hospital, which is, of course, a positive thing, a positive way forward. But is it in itself indicative of a recruitment crisis at the at Victoria Hospital? Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions on page 14. Have we got any further questions then, please? General questions, yeah. Councillor Mrs Callow is first up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This is just another comment. When I was the mayoress and Peter, of course, was the mayor, we went to a number of conferences and welcomed people to Blackpool. But one conference in particular, the chairman did stand up and made a speech about the problems they were experiencing on the M6. I know as a council there is very little that we can do, but it did concern me greatly when there is so much competition out there with other towns fighting for conferences and events, that if we're having these problems, and I know we have them from my own experience with the M6, it's not helping our tourism trade. I don't know really what we can do, but I did feel that I had to say something in full council in the hope that somebody out there will perhaps listen to us and help us to promote our wonderful town even more, because we don't want people arriving for a conference and being aggravated and tired because they've had a difficult journey. They're going to start to think we're going somewhere else, and that just can't be allowed. Thank you, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just for the leader's benefit, I hope he realises and understands I've been rather quiet tonight, because I was a bit worried at the last full council when you said you'd sat on an aeroplane for 13 hours thinking about me. And I can't think of a more torturous journey than having to do that. I'm good. I didn't know whether to send you a signed photograph you could keep in your wallet in case you miss me, or recommend a good psychoanalysis, but I'm glad you've recovered over that. What I do want to say, Mr Mayor, is I would echo the leader's remarks at the opening of this meeting in terms of the terrorist attacks. We are a holiday destination. We attract millions of people. We can't think for 1 minute that we are immune to any target. In fact, we are probably on the list somewhere. So we must reach out to our people in Blackpool and to holidaymakers to be vigilant. Not to worry, we are a safe environment. But I think we do have to be vigilant and recognise that this can happen anywhere, as it did in Arndale many years ago. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Luke Taylor, please.
Thank you. I wanted to ask the Leader of the Council for his view about comments recently made in the Gazette by Councillor Tony Williams regarding the Young Farmers Weekend, which was held on the 6th to the 8th of May. He was quoted in the Gazette as saying, "The Council have let a gang of hooligans on the loose, and do we really need this sort of income?" Whilst we all know there is potential for a small minority in a large group of people who want to cause trouble, I don't think it's fair to tarnish all the young farmers as hooligans. Around 6,000 farmers came to Blackpool, and according to the police, they did not cause many issues, with only a handful of arrests being made, many comparable to a peak summer season weekend. The Young Farmers Weekend takes place out of season every year, where hundreds of thousands of pounds is spent in hotels, restaurants, pubs and clubs that would otherwise be fairly quiet. I'm surprised the opposition would risk affecting the income of so many businesses across Blackpool. The weekend, when compared to a quiet weekend, provides a huge boost in revenue around the town. With £1 million of cuts being disproportionately directed at Blackpool by the Conservative government, are we really in a position to be turning down much needed out-of-season revenue throughout the resort? Councillor Williams doesn't seem to be bothered about that. What are the Leader's thoughts?
Unfortunately. No. Thank you. Have we any further questions, please? Thank you. Councillor Blackburn, over to you to respond, please. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Mrs Callow, I'm not comparing, you'll be pleased to know, the size of Blackpool with the size of Surrey. What I'm comparing is the roughly £24 million that were taken off us with the roughly £24 million that were given to Surrey. So if there's a comparison there, it's a comparison between a small, poor northern unitary and a large, much wealthier southern county. Lancashire as a whole got, I think, £2.3 million. There is a formula to how this money was distributed that the government is currently in legal wrangles as to whether or not it's prepared to publish. For some reason, it's rather anxious about publishing a formula which appeared to give the vast majority of the money to Conservative marginal seats. I can't imagine why. But I think they got 2.3 million, and that was on the basis of the rural nature of parts of Lancashire, such as the Ribble Valley. Councillor Galley, we aim to collect 100% of business rates. There are a wide variety of different ways of calculating what 100% of business rates is, because every time the Chancellor stands up, having told us that we can keep 100% of business rates, he then goes and gives a whole group of other people reliefs and exemptions from business rates. Somewhere in the region of £41 million would be my target for where I want business rate collection to be by 2020. It may be of interest to know that I sit on the National Task Force, National LGA Task Force, which is advising the government and the Treasury on the business rates localisation. We are meeting, I think, for the 4th time during the LGA conference in Bournemouth next week. This is an incredibly complex subject area, and my instinct is that at the end of it, the government will end up with a scheme which is actually remarkably similar to the one that we've got at the moment. Because the reason that there is a series of tariffs and top-ups is because different areas of the country have vastly different capacity to increase their business rate take. And for as long as places like Westminster are able to generate £2,000 million a year, and we are able to generate £40-odd million a year, we have very tight boundaries. We can't afford to go knocking stuff down and rebuilding it all the time. It's going to be a very, very difficult process. And I think the government's just now starting to realise that this is why nobody's done this before. Councillor Callow, what was your second question? Percentages, yes. I think it's about, I'm doing it on the top of my head now, I think it's about 746,000, but I feel a bit like this is an episode of Countdown. I'm sorry if you didn't, I know you asked a question about percentages at scrutiny the other week, which has been resolved because I saw the email from Mr Thompson to the committee clerk. I'm sorry if there was another percentage that you wanted expressed in cash terms here. I think that's the answer, but we'll find out, and we will make sure, Mr Mayor, that in future all those percentages are expressed in cash terms. So this, you're not reliant upon my mental arithmetic again. Councillor Clapham and Councillor Galley and Councillor Taylor both referred to the combined authority and a new housing benefit scheme in slightly different ways. Councillor Taylor is absolutely right. This is not Blackpool missing out on anything. If we manage to get control of the housing benefit budget, that will be the single most significant thing to have happened to this borough in 50 years or more. It is on top of all the other things that Councillor Campbell, Councillor Wright and the rest of the people on these benches, with some assistance in the very early days from your good selves, have done in terms of cracking down on bad landlords, will all pale into insignificance compared to what we can do if we get control of the housing benefit budget in this town. The government is currently spending 90 million pounds a year in housing benefit in this town, and the only people they're making happy are absentee landlords who are making money out of the system. That's no good to the tenants, and it's no good to us, and it's no good to the fabric of our community. If as part of the devolution deal, and it's a big if, we can negotiate that, we not only will have done an incredibly good job, but over the space of the next 10 to 20 years, we will radically alter the face of this town. And all of the indicators that we see, we're at the bottom or the top of every league table going, whichever end we don't want to be at. If we can tackle the scourge of bad housing and absentee landlords and rogue landlords in this town, using the housing benefit system, we'll have achieved more than's ever been achieved before. So please don't paint it as a minor technical alteration. It's far from that. Councillor Hobson, the Shadow Combined Authority meets for the first time on the 11th of July. As you will know, I'm a director of the Lancashire Enterprise Partnership. I've recently been asked to join the board of the LEP's Enterprise Zone Governance Committee, which will be the thing that pushes forward the development of business plans and strategies in the enterprise zones and make sure that the areas surrounding them benefit as much as possible. But absolutely, I mean, economic growth is on the agenda from day one. We have an informal meeting tomorrow morning in Burnley where we're going to start to think about other items that could go on early Shadow Combined Authority agendas, and economic growth and job growth will be undoubtedly one of them. Councillor Mrs Callow, I thank you. I can't take any credit for the PDSA scheme, but as a fellow animal lover, I will pass your thanks on to both the PDSA and to council officers who can take the credit for it. Councillor Lynn Williams, it is hard to recruit in Blackpool for both the council and the hospital for a variety of different reasons, partly geographic. The microsite is part of our response to that, working with the hospital. I know that they are looking at some so-called golden hellos for doctors and for GPs to attract people to come and practice in Blackpool. This clearly isn't something that's available to us, given the amount of money that we've had snatched from under our noses over the past 6 or 7 years. But the NHS is still in a position where they are able to do that. I mean, I do have to say that I think the junior doctors' strike and the ludicrous situation of trying to scrap NHS bursaries for nursing staff, it really is. I mean, so short-sighted as to be more or less unbelievable. Unfortunately, it really does appear to be happening. That can't be doing a great deal for the VIX recruitment or indeed for recruitment in hospital trusts up and down the country. People might not consider that that's our remit, but actually I think it is. I think it's really important that we continue to forge those close links with the NHS. And yeah, I think it's a real shame. We'll continue. Certainly, I know one of our colleagues within the local party is active in a campaign to stop the government from ending the NHS bursaries, and I think we would all want to support that. Councillor Mrs Callow, I mean, I think your points about the M6 actually make a really good argument in favour of the combined authority, because actually, so well done. I'll mention. I'll give you a name check next time I'm talking to the DCLG, because actually, the Highways Agency are far more likely, as are the DFT, to listen to the Lancashire Combined Authority than they are to listen to the local authority, which happens to be at the very end of the road that we're talking about. So, but rest assured, through the Transport for Lancashire Board, we will take forward a conversation with the Highways Agency, and I'll let you know how we get on. If you could just let us finish the fight that we're having with National Rail about the railway station first, that would be kind of handy, though. Councillor Williams, thank you for your remarks. I have got over. It'll be a long time until I take a long flight again, I can tell you. As you will know, because you have a go at me about it in the newspaper, I am the LGA spokesman on counter-extremism and anti-terrorism. I do meet frequently with ministers and civil servants. We are in the process of looking at what all local authorities in the UK can do to make sure that their areas are as protected as they can be, that people understand the risks around radicalisation, and how to put into place early intervention to make sure that people don't end up in that sort of place anyway. So I note your comments. Councillor Luke Taylor, I wouldn't characterise all young farmers as a gang of hooligans either. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Blackburn. We now move on, please, to the report presented by the Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. happy to present my report. There's only one thing that I'd like to say about it, and it's about the Talbot multi-storey car park. I was on my way here tonight, and I seen some men putting up stickers all over the windows saying "The Gym opening soon." So that's just a little update. Contracts have been signed. Apart from that, just happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. So we'll move again through page by page, please. Do we have any questions on page 15, please? Councillor Clapham.
I'd just like to say that I think this is excellent news about Plymouth Road Bridge, the replacement thereof. I welcome it, but sadly there's the usual torrent of moaning from a section of motorists. I use Bispam Road on a regular basis, whether it be by car or on my bike, so I am affected by it. But we all want electrification of the railway. We all want a safe new bridge, and this cannot be done without taking the old one away and replacing it. It's so much common sense. And the sad thing about society today is everything's got to be instant, almost like using your iPad. You know, you go to bed, you get up the following day, there's a new bridge, there's wires running underneath, and the railway is electrified. It's a major achievement to actually get this project underway. It's been years in the making, and it's got my full support. Once it's done, the work's complete, the public will forget all about it, and those that moan in the public will be moaning about something else.
Thank you, Councillor Clapham. We move on to page 16, please. Any questions? Page 17. Councillor Clapham.
Quickie, it's just to say that I did note that there was 2 contracts going into the Blackpool area. Thank you very much. That's on the list.
Thank you. Any further questions on 17? Move on.
Bottom of 17, if I can.
Councillor Clapham.
Issues. It's 17 going on 18, actually, to be perfect. The fact about the blue flag, absolutely delighted. Wonderful that it's in Bispam as well as the other areas that are mentioned. But I'd just like to thank Councillor Campbell for listening to the people who came out of Bispam complaining that their dogs will not be allowed to be walked on the beach at Bispam. Gillian did listen. Sorry, Councillor Campbell did listen. And I'd like to thank you on behalf of the residents. I think it's a very sensible decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blackburn, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just echoing, or rather reflecting on Councillor Clapham's point about the dog walkers in Bispam. I also congratulate Councillor Campbell on listening to the dog walkers in Bispam and ask her why she didn't listen to me and why I can't walk my dog at her side.
Thank you. Any further questions on 18? Yes, Councillor Scott, please.
So it is nice that we have a blue flag in Blackpool, but there's a slight problem with some debris on the North Shore. I've tried to get moved for possibly a couple of months now. It's a lot of scaffolding that has been there apparently for some years, and it was confirmed about 4 weeks ago it was going to be moved, and it hasn't been done so yet. I was just wondering if something could actually be done about this, because I'm sick and tired of talking about it. It is just south of the boating pool on the North Shore, facing Uncle Tom's cabin. I was wondering if someone would please have a look at it. We have a blue flag. There's hotels there, and they walk out across the road onto the beach, and they step over old scaffolding. It's not very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to page 19. Any questions, please? Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Deputy Mayor. It's more of a suggestion than a question. It was about the Blackpool Enterprise Zone, and I was delighted to see the makeup of the sort of businesses that we're looking to attract for the zone, especially food manufacturing. And it reminded me of a piece of work that I saw that was put together by the Centre for Cities, which looked at the 1901 economic census data of cities like, and towns like Blackpool, Swindon, Preston and Warrington, and then compared them to where we were in 2011, and then looked at the economies to see who had done well, why they'd done well, and equally why some had done badly. And I know Councillor Smith would like to hear this, because I've often quoted Swindon as a model that we could actually look at, and some people think I'm potty, but it links to actually the groundwork that's been done with the enterprise zone. What the Centre for Cities noticed with Swindon, which I thought that we could learn from, was that their council in 1976 established a corporate plan which set about a target creating 3,000 new jobs a year. And they did that with quite an aggressive marketing strategy devised with a former Plessy commercial director at the helm. So therefore they had an ambassador. With that ambassador, they then targeted a number of US electronics and pharmaceutical companies to come and invest in Swindon. They had the land, they then had the know-how in terms of the already existing manufacturing base. We have the existing food manufacturing base. We now also have the land in terms of the enterprise zone. So my view, Mr Deputy Mayor, or my suggestion, and I'll be happy to forward the report to Councillor Smith and yourself, is that we now have the land, that we now need to get that business ambassador and join the dots together. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Councillor Hunter, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. A few days after the last council meeting, I was rather surprised and more than a little alarmed to read in the Evening Gazette warnings from Councillor Williams that the main runway at Blackpool Airport was to be swallowed up, or could be swallowed up, by the enterprise zone. I say surprised because my understanding always has been that the main runway is specifically excluded from the boundaries of the enterprise zone. And I would ask Councillor Campbell, if for the sake of clarity and indeed my own peace of mind, if you could explain to all members present that in actual fact Councillor Williams did get this wrong and that there's nothing to worry about. Could you therefore, Councillor Campbell, restore my peace of mind on this subject? Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to page 20. Any questions on 20? Councillor Debbie Coleman.
Thank you. I'd just like to say how pleased I was that Sainsbury's are introducing a delivery service, and I think this is a good idea, and it shows its commitment to the store and also to the people of Blackpool.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Williams.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just on the issue of the gym, I noticed that the unit where our gym was will be empty. Have we any further movement on that?
Thank you. Moving on to page 21, please. Councillor Clapham, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy. It's the acquisition of Wilco's building. When I read through the second paragraph about the short-term the demolition and then the surplus land that could be turned into a surface level car park, yet another. It does surprise me that that's the interim scheme in an area that's surrounded by car parks. You know, car parks should be in the right place to capture cars, but you've got Bank Street, which is mentioned in the agenda, the former Apollo 2000 site, big car park at Sainsbury's, Talbot Road, I'm not going to go on any further, and now another one to go in there. That's big thinking.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. In relation to the acquisition of Wilkinson, unless I've missed this somewhere, could you tell us how much we actually paid for the building and the acquisition and where that money's coming from? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to page 22, please. Councillor Owen.
Page, but before I do so, perhaps you will forgive me if I might thank the Council for that very moving tribute at the beginning of this meeting. It completely overwhelmed me. I can't remember when it's ever been done before, certainly by a person who had never been a member of this Council, and to thank everybody who sent messages of one kind or another. Much appreciated. The library service generally, as I think these three items on page 22 indicate, has a lot of uses over and above the provision of books and technology. And I think it's wonderful that the council staff are able to attract grants of this dimension for very good reasons. These applications are very well presented. They invariably tie into national moods. Here, of course, with dementia, and then with our connections with the lighting industry, with the illuminations. I think it's extremely encouraging. But I do recall when I had responsibility for the library service, how we brought in some quite sweeping changes. We lost a couple of libraries which were no longer suitable for modern needs because of their smallness. We extended Leighton Library particularly, and we built a brand new one at Palatine. And of course, they're very vital aspects of local communities. I seem to recall there's been some rumours in the Gazette recently that we're planning to close libraries. And I don't know, I think it was Councillor Williams, forgive me if I'm wrong in that. But I think during the interregnum of 4 years when the Conservatives were ruling the council fairly recently, it was Councillor Williams, I'm pretty confident, who was preparing to close several of our libraries to try and save costs. And it was only our coming in that saved those libraries. It's never going to be easy to make the case for maintaining the service as a whole. But I'm confident from the commitment this group has made to the library service that will, despite all the financial difficulties, will continue to maintain what I think is a very important service for the communities which they serve.
Thank you. Any further questions? Page 22. Move on to page 23, please. Page 24. Oh, sorry, Councillor Callow. Yes. Shortly. We're just moving on to page 25. And general questions then, please. Thank you. Councillor Callow, please.
One's actually obviously for Councillor Campbell. Councillor Maxine Callow and I were making various inspections in the Norbreck area today when, lo and behold, we spotted the Norbreck North Tram Shelter under construction. We're sure that the local residents will be delighted of this news, and we thank Councillor Campbell. I'm actually thanking you, you know, for honouring her pledge to us. Incidentally, we must also thank the lads working on the new shelter for continuing to work through the appalling weather conditions this morning. Well done to everyone. Thank you.
Councillor Williams next, please.
Mr Deputy Mayor, just to refer on the question about the airport, can I just tell the good councillor and Councillor Campbell that my observations and remarks were based on a meeting that Councillor Roberts and I had with the airport manager some months ago, and they were based on what we were told and informed at that time. It's still my belief that we will not get large jets into Blackpool Airport. It's Councillor Roberts' belief as well. And it was quite clear, if you look at the perimeter of the enterprise zone, that the far end of the runway falls heavily into it and would be very valuable in terms of business and expanding that Euro section. So that's my answer to that one. In the other one, I'll just answer the question on libraries. The argument of libraries carries on, but I would like to remind Councillor Owen, for good reason, that prior to us coming into power in 2007, that this Labour Council closed 6, or was it 7 libraries? 6 or 7, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Callow, please.
Thank you. If I can just touch on 2 subjects. The green bin waste. At a meeting last week, I did ask Councillor Campbell how many people had actually paid to have this collection. And if my memory is correct, it was something in the region of 4,600. I just wondered if this was growing, but I have had some complaints from some people that they haven't been notified of this scheme. I know personally, I know that it was in the free newspaper, Your Blackpool, and also we got a separate leaflet through our door. Some people are saying they haven't had the separate leaflets. I'm sure that most of them have. You know, you pick up all the rubbish and you just put it in the bin and you don't read it. But that's human nature. Certainly, you know, I would just like to know, out of curiosity, how many people have now applied to pay. And if I could ask her, if she can't tell me in public, if she could just whisper it in my ear at some time, how are we progressing with Strictly Come Dancing coming back to Blackpool? You know, it's wonderful publicity for the town. And I've recently been fortunate enough to go abroad, and we went to Gran Canaria, and some people that we met,
Councillor Callow, I believe that's time, I'm afraid.
Point of order. Well, point of order, Mr Deputy Mayor. For the life of me, I don't know why we don't just use the perfectly serviceable lights that we've got up there. All right, I see. Right. But anyway, quite happy to move another 5 minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. We have the cutting. Thank you. That's second. Duly voted.
I'll
We'll
be very
carry on.
quick. No, some people did mention how much they enjoyed Strictly, and in particular, the programme that came from the Tower Ballroom. People think that ballroom, well, we know it's wonderful, but other people think it is wonderful. And if we could just get Strictly back, then that would be great for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Callow. Councillor Robertson, you have time for your question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to point out to Councillor Campbell about the rubbish problem that South Shore is having at the moment with the seagulls attacking the rubbish bags. Seagull-proof rubbish bags were introduced to Blackpool South Shore, but you haven't covered the whole area of South Shore. I was just wondering if you were going to get the rest of the area covered. And I believe the rubbish bags are getting given to residential properties and not business properties, where the rubbish is put out at the same time in the same containers, plastic bags. Now, plastic bags are getting ripped apart, and it's destroying the economy in South Shore, because the reviews that are going back on the hotel's reviews is getting picked up. If I can leave with that, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I express my concerns about the seagulls in South Shore? Because having looked at some of the photographs that are appearing on the internet, it appears that we are breeding huge, mutant gulls, which are capable of dropping plasma televisions, three-piece suites, microwaves, kitchen units, bathroom units, and even toilets into the alleyways in Waterloo Road and Bloomfield Road. And isn't it time, as well as extending seagull-proof bags, isn't it time that we funded some research into what type of gulls could possibly be dropping this detritus into our back alleys? For they must be doing so, Mr Deputy Mayor, because we fitted alley gates to all of these alleyways. Yeah. So I can think of no other possible explanation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Blackburn. So I believe that concludes the questions. So, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I will do my best in the 10 minutes that I've got to get through this. Councillor Clapham, we appear to be making you very happy. I'm very pleased. Plymouth Road Bridge, yeah, there has been a letter go out to residents in the surrounding area very recently. Obviously, it's difficult to close a bridge like that. A lot of people go across it. I do believe we've got a plan to try and keep it to 2 lanes at a time, though. Whether that will be feasible all the time, I'm not completely sure. But what I have very clearly asked council officers is to make sure that we do not do any planned roadworks in the area at the time. I mean, obviously, emergency roadworks, that might be, you know, difficult to stop. But we will do our very best to make it as easy as possible for commuters and people using the bridge. Yes, a couple of contracts into Blackpool, fabulous. And Blue Flag, very happy about the Blue Flag, and very happy that we could help the dog walkers who were not very happy about not being able to walk their dogs. Councillor Blackburn, if I hadn't done that, it would have looked as though we're being favourable to you, and we can't do that, I'm afraid, sorry. Well, I did actually tell you, read your emails, yeah. Councillor Scott, Blue Flag scaffolding south of the boating pool, is that correct? Yeah. I will obviously look into that, but, you know, if you, when it comes to issues like that, if you come to me rather than go to the newspaper, that would be great, yeah. Councillor Galley, Enterprise Zone, Swindon as a model. I've got a few rough notes here. 1976, I was 4 years old then. That was a long time ago. I believe that Edwin Booth is very active in promoting our Enterprise Zone, so obviously that's a very good person to have on board. But sometimes I wish you put some of your ideas into writing to me, so feel free to send things to me, that's great. Councillor Hunter, the Enterprise Zone, runway, oh yes, Councillor Williams, yes, I know you've clarified, Councillor Williams, but just to make it very clear to you that, you know, and I have got a map, just in case, that, you know, there's the runway, yeah, it's not, it's, you know, it's very clearly marked out, and we're not going to be using any of the runway for the Enterprise Zone. No, we're not. This is the clear plan, you can see it here. So, if you want to keep a copy, that's great. I can get you a bigger one, yeah. Councillor Coleman, Sainsbury's delivery service, yes, fabulous, very good. A lot of people say that Sainsbury's isn't busy, and obviously this is showing that it definitely is if they're putting on a delivery service, which is brilliant. Councillor Williams, yes, we're actively marketing the gym space. Yeah, as you would expect, and hopefully we'll have somebody take it very soon. Sorry, bear with me a moment. Councillor Clapham, the Wilco site. Yeah, it is going to be short-term car parking. You wouldn't just leave it as a blank empty space until we've built everything else. And I know how keen Councillor Wright is on our car parks. And the more money we can get in car parks, the better. Councillor Williams, page 1 of the exec agenda on the 4th of April gives you the details that you've asked me for tonight. Page 1 of the executive agenda on the 4th of April gives you the prudential borrowing figure of 7.8 million over 50 years to 7.8 million. Yeah. So that information is there. Councillor Owen, closing, no, we're not closing libraries, well, at least not at the moment, definitely not this year. It's obviously something that we feel very firmly about as a group, and we have defended and kept them open, kept them functioning, and we will continue to do so, hopefully. Councillor, Mr. Callow, tram stop, fabulous. I shall pass on your regards about working through the rain as well, fantastic. So yeah, Councillor Williams, sorry, going back to your Enterprise Zone thing, obviously, I think you've been misinformed, sorry. Councillor Mrs. Callow, green bin collection, got that before I came in here. 53,000 households in Blackpool used to have the green bin collection. So far, we have had in excess of 7,000 households sign up. So that's roughly about 10% of the people who had it originally. And it's still going on. I think a lot of people are realising after a few weeks that they still need the service. And that's part of keeping the green bins with them for a little while, just to see if they will need it. Oh yeah, strictly, that can be a private conversation if that's okay, but I do agree with you, it's great for the town, and I will obviously do all I possibly can to bring it back. Councillor Robertson, rubbish. Seagull-proof bags, yeah, there have been some pilots in your area. I think I'll have to speak to officers to see if we're going to extend it, but it would be, I think it would be ideal if we could extend it. Not quite sure how we can do it for commercial waste, but I'll certainly have that conversation. And yes, you're right, Councillor Blackburn, seagulls in South Shore do seem to be mutants. Just one thing, I'm disappointed, frankly, that Councillor Williams hasn't reared the question of selective licensing. Because as I told him at the last meeting, there would be an audit, and that is duly finished. It will go to the audit committee in September, where they can have a look at it. And there's just couple of things I'd like to read out about it if I can. Our testing, this is in the executive summary, our testing did not identify any transactions processed by the service or service accountancy staff which we consider inappropriate or unrelated to either of the schemes. And also, in the overall opinion and assurance statement, now that appropriate corrections have been made, both schemes are forecasting an overspend, which demonstrates that landlords have not been overcharged for licences, but it does create a budget pressure for the council, which needs to be managed through the core funding of the Public Protection Service. So I hope he can now stop getting up and implying that we've done something wrong with the selective licensing schemes. I really do hope so. Sorry, no, sorry. I think this kind of puts it to bed.
Right,
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Campbell. Moving on then, please, to the report from the Cabinet Secretary, Councillor Kane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Before I present the report, I'd just like to make a comment that's currently active in Blackpool, and that's the BBC DIY SOS are here in Blackpool doing the former Blenheim House, and that's a great thing for the publicity for the town, and it's a great thing for the Carers Trust. So what I would say, this opportunity, Mr. Deputy Mayor, is that there is still a plea for tradesmen and people to help out. So if anybody in the chamber, anybody that's listening online, or anybody within the media, I know it's been on the front page of the paper and the local radio have been covering it, but they are vital to get more tradesmen. So if anybody knows of anybody who can spare an hour or donate some goods and services, that would greatly be appreciated. And the programme is due to air around the time of Children in Need, so we'll be getting a good publicity out of that. So I would hope that the residents of Blackpool and the businesses would help and chip into that. And like I said, there's always information available regarding that, so if people could come on board, I'd greatly appreciate it. And with that, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'll present the report and look to answer as many questions as possible. Thanks very much.
I'm obliged. Thank you, Councillor Kane. So moving on to questions, please, on page 27. Councillor Clapham, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. It's the first subject on there, children's social care. As it says in the report, there is the rise in social care services, a very big rise. And we've got the highest rate of looked after children per 10,000 population in the country, which is now standing at 493 children. To understand this picture further, Blackpool Safeguarding Children's Board is supporting their newly appointed analyst to review demand to develop a better understanding of issues which underlie this, as it says in the report. If any member who has served on committees to do with safeguarding, children's services, or the current Health and Wellbeing Board, the issues underlying the ever-increasing demand on social care services, support for families, and the upward spiral of looked-after children are always at the forefront of their work. Councillor Ivan Taylor and myself spent hours on these problems following a poor Ofsted report a number of years ago. What specifically are the objectives of this analyst to justify his or her appointment? Surely there must be an objective out of it. We've got a tremendous amount of experts within Blackpool dealing with these awful problems and the ever-rising numbers. So can you tell me why we have the analyst to look at back data probably to tell us how to handle it? Because it's a live show, we handle it day by day.
Thank you, Councillor Clapham. Councillor Mrs Callow, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Clapham has said most of what I was going to say on this subject. It is very worrying and upsetting when you read these reports about the number of children that are now looked after by the authority. And I don't know how we can get a grip on it. I'm not an expert, but these reports come up in front of full council and scrutiny committees time and time again, and I am not criticising anybody, but we don't seem to have the answer. Are some of these families, have they lived in Blackpool for long, or the fact that this is Blackpool, does that attract them and they come here and bring their problems? It is a worry. I do feel extremely sorry for these children who have got such a bad start in life, and I just hope that eventually we will be able to sort out some of these problems so that one day we will get a report that says the number is coming down quite steadily. And I agree with everything that Councillor Clapham has said. We seem to be in a no man's land where this is, and you know, it's a greater person than me or most of us here that could sort this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Callow. Councillor Galley, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Follows on that slightly different tangent though. In December we had our children looked after children. I know the name seems flipping a lot at the moment, but we had a conference in the Winter Gardens and it was really successful. There were some very touching stories, personal stories, and the theme of it was how could we help our children, the children of the town. I never heard any follow-up since that conference as to what the results were. I put my name down as a mentor. Now it might be that I might not have been a very good mentor, which is why I've not heard anything back, but the fact that I've not heard anything back worries me, the fact that perhaps other people haven't heard anything back as well. So I just wondered what the follow-up to that conference was, Mr Deputy Mayor, and also if we'll be having another, because I think it's got legs. I think it would be a great mover for helping some of those children as they move into adulthood. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Councillor Blackburn, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's on the children's services stuff, the looked after children in particular, and the analyst post that has been mentioned. The lack of imagination, Mr Deputy Mayor, and the timidity of certain members of the opposition never ceases to amaze me. We have been working extremely hard over the past 4 or 5 months to establish what is different about this particular peak in demand for children's services. And what we've discovered is that it's not just children's social care. This is not the usual stuff that we see year in, year out. There is an additional pressure on children's services. There was a peak just after Christmas, which has not dropped down. And when we've spoken to our colleagues across the public service, it's not just us. It's the same at the hospital, and it's the same at the police, particularly at A&E and at the custody desk. And if we need to make some money available, and it's us that have made the money available, to appoint an analyst to really get to the bottom of what all of that's about and to find out what that emerging trend is, which is putting every part of the public sector in Blackpool under pressure, then we should do that. You know, and I can never understand this attitude of this belief that all hitherto expertise and experience ought to exist within Blackpool Council and ought to be being paid for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, and not to take on the people that we need to do the work that we need done when it needs done. I just find it absolutely astonishing, particularly, I have to say, from a former cabinet member for children's social care, who I would have expected to have understood the situation a little bit better, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ivan Taylor, please.
I just wanted to refer to the fact that on the latest figures, the number of children living in poverty, that is being brought up officially under the recognised level of poverty in this country, has gone up again last year by another 200,000. There is clearly a correlation between some of the things that are happening in terms of children going into care and poverty. I don't think it's possible to deny the existence of that link. It is very real. I don't know what the figures are for Blackpool itself, but I would have thought that given the national, what is happening nationally, they must be significant here too. What the answer to these is complex, and what the solutions are may be complex. But one thing I am certain of, and that is attacking the benefit system for families in this country, may appear to be a popular political move, but in terms of its effect on our communities and on our families, it is disastrous. And it's I think one of the causes of why so many families are being driven into poverty is because the benefit system is being attacked. And it's all right people saying, well, people shouldn't be on benefits, they should be in work and all the rest of it. That sounds fine in theory, but in reality, so many families, particularly single parents, single mothers with children, have found in the past that what they're able to get in benefit has saved them from being in a dire situation to getting by. And when they go into a dire situation, that is when you can get the effects of substance misuse and alcohol and all the rest coming into play. So one of the things I hope that out of these new figures is that the government will recognise that this is not the way to take this country, and will start to reverse that process and start to help poor families to deal with the economic situation they find themselves in.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan, please.
Deputy Mayor, if we look in our own paperwork and go back to the welfare reforms, it clearly states that families in our town are going to be hit by over a fifth of their budgets. So we will end up in a worse position and do need somebody to be looking into that and improve the situation for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to page 28, please. Page 29, page 30, 31, 32, 33. Councillor Benson.
It's just regarding the children's centres. I did note in the report that it says that 81.4% of all Blackpool's 0 to 5-year-olds are registered with a children's centre. Is that as impressive as it sounds, and what does that mean for the work that is carried out? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to page 34, page 35, and any further questions, please. Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I just wondered how the Council is going to meet its legal statutory obligations. I have to read this bit because I can never get my Act of Parliament right. Under Section 17 of the Children's Act 1989, if it goes ahead with the proposed cuts to provision at Hornby Road respite care home for children with disabilities. Now, I know I've spoken about this before, and there are clear issues there in terms of the proposals are going to result in a shortfall to meet the assessed needs of the disabled children who currently access it, and also those children who will be accessing it in the future. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of questions, one on fluoride in children's milk. Before we started the process, there was some tests done to check how much fluoride was already existing in children in Blackpool, and fortunately, the levels were virtually nil. Can you please tell me how we're going to measure that going forward? We don't have any school nurses now, and as I understand it, the milk that these children are drinking with fluoride in is drunk through a straw, which means it goes straight down the throat. Very little of it actually goes round the teeth. So how are we measuring the success of this in the future? I know it's early days. How are we measuring this in the future? Because if it is going straight down the throat, then it's medication. And the final, if I could, just one more question. I'm sure that Councillor Kane will agree with me that we want Blackpool to be a family holiday resort. And he made similar statements referring to Councillor Luke Taylor's comments in regard to, do we want these kind of people in Blackpool? Well, if you'd read the article properly, you would have said, I realise it was just a small faction. Secondly, will you remember that Councillor Kane said on record and in a recorded message that we don't want stag and hens in Blackpool?
Thank you. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As an aside, I can assure Councillor Williams that we keep a very close record of exactly what he said in the newspaper. I just think it might help him, Mr Mayor, in advance of the answer that I know that's coming from Councillor Kane. The reason that people put fluoride in water is not because water goes into your mouth, but because water goes into your stomach and it is absorbed by your body, and that's how it works. The similar principle with milk, Mr Mayor.
I'm obliged. Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. I revert to a subject on many people's minds over the past few weeks, and of course that is the vote on the referendum. I'd like to make it absolutely clear here that I'm in no way tarring everybody with the same brush. I understand people voted on both sides for many, many different reasons. Would the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that, notwithstanding last week's vote, we should be proud to live in a diverse and tolerant society? Does he share my concern that some factions within our society have taken the Brexit vote as almost a license to spread their xenophobic message of hatred? And does he agree with me that it's incumbent upon all of us to do all that we can do in our power to support anyone facing religious or ethnic bigotry and to stamp on racism with all our might?
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Councillor Kane, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. First of all, I think the first three questions from Councillor Clapham, Councillor Mrs Callow and Councillor Galley, and then Councillor Blackburn were all linked to regarding the children's services and the analysts. Like we've just said, we found money because we've started to recruit more social workers. We acknowledge there's a problem, and what we will do is everything that we can to ensure that the people, and particularly the children of this town, are in a safe environment. Regarding the safeguarding, that is our priority regarding children. And could I just pay the respects to Councillor Collett, who's been doing a tremendous amount of work, and I can assure the Chamber that the work that Councillor Collett has been doing is continuing, and I am taking personal responsibility for all children's services. I'm devoting the majority of my time for children's services because what I will not allow is for somebody to be drafted into Blackpool from Whitehall or from Westminster to run our children's services, because, can I just say, the people that work for the council do a tremendous job under extreme circumstances. Myself and the Director of Children, who's with us tonight, Delith, we walk the floor, we see the people. I'm not just sitting behind a desk. On Monday, I was joined by the Chief Executive, Delith, Amanda Atton, the leader, signing the pledge for the looked after children, or our children. There's a comment, they don't want to be called looked after children. They are our children, and we should treat them as though they are our own flesh and blood, and we will continue to do so. So where there are resources that need to flex, then I will flex those resources accordingly. There has been chatter in the media recently regarding grass cutting, which surprises me that it didn't get raised tonight. But when I talked to groups there 12 months ago, they said, but quite frankly, they'd rather have 2 gardeners to look after their park than a social worker. Well, I'm sorry, but that is not the priority of this administration. Our priority is looking after primarily the children. We have got a major issue at the moment in the town, why our numbers are high. I got an email yesterday telling me the numbers are currently 489 looked after children, and while we're taking some of them out, that comes up. It's hovering around just below the 500 mark. It did say 493, it's come down, but that's only by 4, and it's not something that we're taking our eye off the ball. It's vitally important that we do everything that we can, and those social workers, I've got to give credit to them. They are working under extreme pressure, and that is why I, in support of the group and the leader, found the money to put in for extra social workers. And we had senior managers who were actually doing the work of a social worker and not being able to restructure the department. I'm pleased to say that that has changed. We are now seeing those people coming through. So I sit on the Adult Safeguarding Board and the Children's Safeguarding Board, and safeguarding is the priority. We have a major issue which people are aware of that's been in the press regarding some activity on the promenade with people doing tricks. Now, those children that are involved there, currently it's around about 65 that we've identified. When we add their siblings into that, we're getting that figure over 100. And we are now looking, and part of the analyst job is looking with the police and with our partners, because we believe that there's some organisation behind that, behind those people. What it is yet, we're still to find out, but there are links to criminality, and I hope that we get the backing of everybody in this chamber to say that that is the single priority, and we've got to, and I will, if I have to give some of my responsibilities to other people in the interim period, but I do want to assure everybody that my priority is the looking after the children, and I was pleased to sign the pledge, like I say, on Monday for the looked after. I can only endorse what Councillor Ivan Taylor said, all these things there, you know, the links to poverty, etc., and the need for help. And we are a town, I'm proud to say we're a great town. We are the best seaside town in Europe. Whether we're in or out of Europe, we're still the best. And, you know, we've got to make sure that people in Westminster realise, stop cutting our money. We can't carry on. There's only so much we can do with the money, and I hope that we get cross-party assistance there, because we need to be lobbying government and telling them, quite frankly, you've cut us enough now, and it's getting to a real crisis point, and I hope that we can have a cross-party view there to lobbying whoever the new Prime Minister is, and making sure whoever the new Chancellor will be, that we're actually saying, you've cut us too much. We cannot, we're at our limit, we can't do any more. Councillor Ryan, you said about welfare reform, and it's all links into what I've already said. Councillor Benson, you mentioned about the Children's Centre, 81.4% children in Blackpool register with the Children's Centre. Is that good? You're asking me, is it good? Yes, it's excellent, and that's not just my word saying it, because people say, well, we expect you to say that anyway, but that's the view of Ofsted as well. That's higher than the national average, which I'm really pleased for. Bearing in mind as well the transience issue that we have in the town, I think that it's an absolute credit to us to have those people registered at children's centres within Blackpool. Councillor Galley, you mentioned about my legal obligations regarding Section 17. Can I tell you that my legal obligations will be met on anything regarding children's services and regarding the OMB Road one? We haven't finally concluded that. It's been out to consultation. We've consulted with everybody, the service users. So my obligations will be met, fully met, because I'm not going to prison. Not as I know of, anyway. Not for that one, anyway. Yeah. Councillor Williams, you mentioned about the fluoride in milk, and I've just got to endorse what Councillor Blackburn said. It's absorbed and it goes through the body. It doesn't actually have to physically touch the teeth. It's what's absorbed. Regarding your other comments regarding trying to bounce things back off me, what I've said about organisations, etc., that's no longer my responsibility. That's Councillor Campbell's now, so I have nothing to do with that section. And Councillor Mitchell, you refer to a diverse society and hate crime. I think that's absolutely apparent that what's happened in recent few days, we will not tolerate any hate crime as whatsoever, whether that's religious, whether it's with LGBT, whether any form of hate crime is not acceptable. And I'm certain that there's nobody in this chamber could disagree with that. And we will work with every organisation and every partner group that we have to ensure that if there's any hate crime, what I would say, anybody out there listening, the media area now, please report it, no matter how trivial you think it is. If you think you're a subject or you know somebody who's a subject of any hate crime, then please let the authorities know and let us stamp it out. Because one thing that I will say, I was pleased, it was in Councillor Blackburn's report, but I was pleased to represent the council at the vigil we did for the 49 people that lost their lives in Orlando. Again, that was another crime that could easily happen here. And we've got to do everything we can. We've got to make sure we're vigilant. We are a target. We are a seaside resort. So I would urge everybody, be vigilant, suspect anything, please report it. And as an organisation, as Blackpool Council, we must work with every partner organisation to stamp out all forms of hatred. So that has my full backing, and I hope it gets the full backing of this chamber. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. We move on, please, to item 7, freedom of entry, the Duke of Lancaster Regiment. I have Councillor Blackburn to move.
Big speeches. This is simply to start the process off. I've been really pleased to have, when we've had informal negotiations about this, the Duke of Lancaster's regiment recruits in Blackpool. It does huge amounts of work for us, not least during Armed Forces Week and around the time of Remembrance Day. They're very important to Blackpool Council and to the people of Blackpool. This is absolutely the right thing to do. All the big speeches and everything will come later, but I'm looking for and expecting support from all parts of the chamber. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, I believe, to second.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I totally concur with the leader's remarks on this. Blackpool Council has a long history of association with the armed forces, including the Navy and the Air Force, and I think the fact that this is our own regiment coming from our own county is more appropriate than not, and I'm happy to second this.
Thank you. I invite any other councillors to speak on this subject. Thank you. Councillor Blackburn, right to reply. Thank you. We'll move to the vote, please. Those in support of the motion. Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. Move on to item 8, please, colleagues. Blackpool tramway extension to Blackpool North Station. Councillor Campbell to move the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yeah, happy to move the recommendation as I stated earlier on. This is the beginning of a very long process, which we'll be keeping a very close eye on. But yes, I'd be happy if the Chamber would approve this tonight. Thank you very much.
Obliged, thank you. Who have we got seconding the motion, please? Councillor Blackburn.
Formally seconded, Deputy Mayor, but reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Any further councillors wish to comment? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I was surprised when I saw this actually in the full agenda for tonight's council. I wasn't sure why you hadn't taken this to the executive last Monday. The Monday just gone. But this agenda came out before then. Okay, well, I apologise for that. All right, it's okay. But why didn't you take it to the next executive and ratify it there? Sorry.
On a point of
I'm
order,
being-
Mr Mayor, it's got to come to full council. It's been to executive. It's got to come to full council. And on a further point of order, I'm getting rather tired of having to explain to Councillor Williams how things work.
Thank you, Councillor Blackwood. Councillor Williams.
I'll rest on that then, Mr.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Callow, please.
Say that I support our local taxi drivers. In my view, this has been ill thought out. Many taxis line up at North Station to meet arriving trains. This work is the taxi drivers' bread and butter, and to rob them of this income is an absolute disgrace, because this is what I believe will happen. As a San Gronan, born and bred in Blackpool, I remember quite clearly the trams running throughout the town, causing absolute traffic chaos. That was why, along with most other towns, we got rid of them. So why bring them back now? Incidentally, I understand that the priest at Sacred Heart Church is very concerned that trams going up and down Talbot Road will particularly disrupt his funeral services at the church. Scrap this plan, scrap it now, because it's ridiculous. This is people's livelihood that you're playing with. Thank you.
Councillor Callow, thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor O'Hara, please.
As you know, I don't normally speak, but all the lobbying I've had is in favour of the trams up. Every tram system that's been brought in this country, after the stupid idea of cancelling them all in the 50s, has increased the number of footfall in the area where the trams are running. And I just cannot understand how we don't accept that the coordination between taxis and trams and buses is what's working in all the major towns in the country and all the major cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Right to reply? Thank you. We'll move on to the vote on the motion, please. Those in favour? Do we have 4 more?
5 members.
1, 2, 3, 4. We do have 5 requesting a recorded vote. Move to recorded vote, please.
Mr Mayor, recorded votes on the motion in the name of Councillor Campbell. Please could members indicate their answer with either yes, no or abstain. Councillor Benson? Yes. Councillor Blackburn? Yes. Councillor Brown? No. Councillor Kane? Yes. Councillor Mrs Maxine Callow? No. Councillor Peter Callow? No. Councillor Campbell? Yes. Councillor Clapham? No. Councillor Debbie Coleman? Yes. Councillor Ian Coleman? Yes. Councillor Cox? Councillor Critchley? Yes. Councillor Cross? Yes. Councillor Elms? Yes. Councillor Galley? Yes. Councillor Hobson? Yes. Councillor Hunter? Yes. Councillor Hutton? Councillor Jackson? Yes. Councillor Kirkland? Yes. Councillor Matthews? Yes. Councillor Maycock? No. Councillor Mitchell? Yes. Councillor O'Hara? Yes. Councillor Owen? Yes. Councillor Roberts? No. Councillor Robertson? No. Councillor Ryan? Yes. Councillor Scott? Councillor Singleton? Yes. Councillor Smith? Yes. Councillor Stansfield? No. Councillor Ivan Taylor? Yes. Councillor Luke Taylor? Yes. Councillor Lynn Williams? Yes. Councillor Tony Williams? No. Councillor Mrs Wright? Yes. Mr Deputy Mayor?
Mr Chair, I abstain, please.
Mr Mayor, members have voted as follows: 26 for the motion, 11 against, 1 abstention.
I'm obliged, thank you. Motion's carried. Can we move on to item 9, please, the local transport plan? Councillor Campbell, I believe you're going to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yeah, it's just fairly simple. It's just to approve the extension of the local transport plan strategy until April 2017. Obviously, all the work that's going on with the combined authority at the moment, it makes sense just to see how that goes before we make a new transport plan. And that's it, basically. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Who do we have to second the motion, please? Councillor Blackburn.
Yeah, second it. Deputy Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Any comments, councillors? Thank you. Councillor Campbell, right to reply. Thank you. We'll vote on the motion, please. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. I believe that concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you for a very cordial and friendly meeting and enjoyable, and thank you for being gentle with me because I've not been so well, you know. So I'm obliged. Thank you all. Thank you.